Hey everyone, welcome to theCreek. My name is Jared Miller and I'm the ministry lead here. And in the last couple of weeks, as we've been looking at Nehemiah's story through these videos, we've seen the importance of couching your passion in prayer and then investing in your exile. If you missed either of those videos, you can go up here to go check them out. And while you're at it, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel to stay on top of everything that's happening here at theCreek. We've got some exciting announcements, as I mentioned last week, coming your way and that we are thrilled to be able to share with you. Now, those videos have been pretty heavy on background material. They've been focused largely on things that tended to happen before the story of Nehemiah really got up and running. But the first chapter and a half of this book largely serve as table setting for everything that comes next. Nehemiah, as we've talked about, is largely a story of rebuilding capacity for ministry. If the people of God were going to flourish in the land they'd been given, then they needed a means by which to secure that life. Walls were how the 5th century BC answered that question. Walls weren't actually designed to keep you safe from armies. Well, they were maybe in the first place, but as time wore on, they became less and less effective at that. The Babylonians and now the Persians had proven that walls were at best a temporary inconvenience to a well-equipped army. What walls were really designed to do was to keep the people who wanted something other than your flourishing out of your space. Walls were designed as a deterrent for marauders and bandits and robbers who didn't have access to the kind of siege machinery of the day. Walls were designed to let ordinary people live ordinary lives. And as long as the walls were in utter disrepair, Nehemiah observes that crops couldn't be planted, jobs couldn't be created, families couldn't be formed. All of this because security is the cornerstone of human flourishing. Everything, absolutely everything below self-actualization on Maslow's hierarchy boils down to whether or not we feel secure. Not whether or not we are, but whether we feel that security. And so this is what makes Nehemiah such an interesting and effective leader. He doesn't do what so many of us do who've been trained in pastoral ministry and simply try to spend his time comforting disenchanted or disenfranchised men and women. He knows that way too often helping can actually hurt. And so Nehemiah is a great leader because he fully is aware of what business he's actually in. That if he wants to see the people of God flourish in this land that they have inherited, he needs to give them the tools to make that happen. Nehemiah understands that he is operating in a competitive marketplace of ideas, and so he sets out counterintuitively not to promote a project he has arrived to complete, but to cast a vision for it. Anybody who has ever volunteered for any committee on any organization understands this reality. Projects have liabilities. Visions have energy. Projects are always characterized by the problems that they're facing. You want to grow a budget, or expand public transit, or change a habit, or just read more books. Whatever it is, if it is an end in and of itself, it will always be susceptible to the weakest point of the people making it. A vision, however, has the capacity to carry people past can't into the impossible. Which it turned out was actually a key moment for Nehemiah, because from the very second that he arrived on the scene with letters from the king and supplies to do what needed to be done, Nehemiah understood that he was going to be pissing off the very people who benefited from the city of Jerusalem being vulnerable and its walls being porous. We're told here in the second chapter that not only is there opposition to Nehemiah's project, but that the opposition is growing rapidly. If this was just a project, that Nehemiah was working on, growing vocal opposition like this would easily waylay it. In fact, we'll see more about that in a couple of weeks. It is discouraging, to say the least, to have people actively working against you. But when you're convicted of a vision, you do what Nehemiah does here. You acknowledge that the opposition is real. You do the work you need to do behind the scenes, and then you remind the people of God what it means to live into that promise. Vision isn't about convincing people's minds of something. Facts and figures and dates and times are not enough to get past the Horonites and the Ammonites of any day or time. If you have something that God has laid on your heart, then acknowledge where it is that sits and use your heart to speak to other hearts. That's the fundamental difference between a vision and a project. You and I are not brains on sticks. As James Smith points out, we are what we love. And so the key is to make people fall in love with what it is that you love, and then watch as the walls build in the face of all kinds of opposition. We'll pick it up there next time. But for now, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers.